Under the blinding sun of a small Texas town, a man walked onto the dusty training field gripping something long, wrapped in a faded olive drab cloth. He wasn't a man of many words, but his presence carried weight. His name was Jack Reynolds, a single dad, a veteran, a man who'd seen more than his share of wars. Life after service hadn't been kind. He worked odd jobs to provide for his daughter, Ella, who was just 10 years old. Most people didn't know much about him, only that he kept to himself, drove an old rusted truck, and never talked about the past. But on this particular day, he was called into a place he never imagined he'd stand again, a Marine training camp, in front of a group of hardened recruits, and even the company's CEO who had come to observe. The CEO, a man named Carter Blake, was the embodiment of power and wealth. He owned a defense contracting company and prided himself on innovation, modern weapons, and flashy technology. He had no interest in old relics of war, nor in men who carried them. The Marines at the base stood tall, their rifles polished, their uniforms crisp. They were used to the latest gear and the sharpest drills. Jack looked out of place, wearing worn jeans and boots, his face carrying the lines of battles fought long ago. When Carter Blake noticed the long cloth in Jack's hands, he smirked. "What's this, Reynolds? Some kind of antique show?" The Marines chuckled, some shaking their heads. Jack said nothing, only unwrapped the cloth with slow, deliberate hands. Inside lay a rifle, an M1 Garand, a World War II veteran's weapon. Its wood was darkened from years of use, the steel marked with scars of history. For Jack, it wasn't just a weapon. It was a memory, a symbol of men who never came home, of courage carved in the mud and blood of foreign soil. The Marines exchanged doubtful looks. One whispered, "That old thing can't even fire straight." The CEO folded his arms, ready to be entertained. But Jack's daughter, Ella, stood nearby. She clutched her father's hand before he stepped forward. "Show them, Dad," she whispered. And in her eyes, Jack saw everything he needed, the reason he fought, the reason he never gave up, even when life had stripped him bare. Jack approached the firing line. The silence grew heavy. The Marines stood straighter, unsure whether to laugh or watch. He checked the rifle with steady hands, movements so precise they seemed rehearsed from 1,000 lifetimes. He shouldered the weapon, his breathing controlled, his posture perfect. Then, with a pull of the trigger, the rifle cracked through the air, louder than any modern gun, echoing like thunder rolling off distant mountains. The sound silenced the field. One target fell, then another, and another. Jack moved with a grace that no one expected from a man his age, his hands steady, his shots exact. Each pull of the trigger was a story, a memory, a discipline that modern machines could never replicate. The Marines, who had been laughing moments before, stood in awe. Carter Blake's smug smile slowly faded. The last shot rang out, splitting the bullseye at twice the distance most could manage. The silence that followed was different now. It wasn't disbelief, it was respect. The Marines looked at Jack as if seeing him for the first time. Some had tears in their eyes, realizing they were standing before a man who had lived the very history they were taught about in books. Jack lowered the rifle gently, almost reverently, then set it down. He looked at the recruits and finally spoke, his voice quiet but heavy with truth. "You think power comes from the weapon in your hands," he said. "But it doesn't. It comes from discipline, from heart, from knowing that when everything else is stripped away, all you've got is the courage to stand and fight." This rifle, it isn't just steel and wood. It carried boys who became men in the hardest way possible. It carried brothers who laid down their lives so the rest of us could come home. Don't ever forget what you hold when you wear this uniform. Don't ever think it's just a job. The Marines nodded, their pride humbled into honor. Carter Blake shifted uncomfortably, realizing his millions in weapons and technology couldn't buy what this man had shown them in minutes, true strength of character. And standing just a few steps away, Ella's small smile broke into pure pride, her eyes shining. For her, her father wasn't just a veteran or a struggling dad. He was a hero, hers, and now everyone's in that silent field. The CEO finally broke the silence. His voice was softer now. "Reynolds, maybe we could," but Jack cut him off with a calm shake of his head. "I'm not here for your contracts or your company. I'm here for my daughter. To show her that no matter how hard life gets, you never forget who you are, or what you stand for." The Marines erupted into applause, not the loud, forced kind, but the steady, respectful rhythm of men and women who had just witnessed something unforgettable. Some saluted him. Some whispered, "Sir," under their breath. And in that moment, Jack Reynolds, the quiet, struggling single dad, stood taller than any CEO, richer than any billionaire. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, Jack picked up Ella, who threw her arms around his neck. "You were amazing, Dad," she whispered. He smiled, kissing her forehead. "No, sweetheart, we were amazing. Because you believed in me." The camera zooms out, leaving viewers with the image of a father and daughter walking off into the fading light, a rifle slung gently over his shoulder, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of sacrifice and honor. And this is where I invite you, if Jack's story touched your heart, if it reminded you of courage, of sacrifice, of love that never gives up, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like Jack's aren't just about the past. They're about the strength we carry today, the kind we pass on to the next generation. And sometimes, all it takes to silence a crowd is the truth spoken through actions, not words.